Well, how's it going, guys? Welcome to another episode of Coffee Talk. Got a little Black Rifle coffee, just black brew in my cup today, and just enjoying a nice overcast day here out on the homestead. And if you're new around here, my name is Chad Ainsworth, and this channel is all about homesteading, adventure, and beach life from right here in normally sunny South Florida, but today a nice chilly overcast day in late February, which I will take it for sure. But today I wanted to talk to you guys about my beliefs as a father, as a husband, as a Christian, a man of faith, as what I like to call a Libertarian Conservative here in 2025. I'm going to be talking in these coffee talks about all kinds of subjects moving forward here, and I might get into a little bit of some political, spiritual type of topics. So I thought, it's probably a good idea to divulge a little bit more of the background of where I'm coming from, so you have some perspective here. And my goal in these talks is to be open and honest about my experiences in life and who I am and what I believe, but also to start conversation in the comments down below. I think since 2020, a lot of the political rhetoric has just gotten to the point where we feel like we can't even discuss things openly anymore. And I feel like there's a bit of a change happening recently where people are starting to feel like they can actually talk again, and not without fear of being canceled immediately. And I just thought, it's a good opportunity to go ahead and do that a little in these videos. So what do I mean by the fact that I say I'm a Libertarian Conservative? If you don't know what either of those things are, a Libertarian is it's a third party. There's conservatives and liberals, Republicans and Democrats, the two-party system of America. Libertarians kind of fall down the middle and take a little bit from both sides, not for the purpose of being entirely middle of the road, but because that's just what they believe. I can agree with a lot of libertarian principles from the sense of small government and government being out of my life to the most that is possible. And that's where I differ. I grew up in a Republican household. I still vote Republican because I believe that Republican Party in America more closely aligns with a lesser government approach. That's not always the case, especially when it comes to government overreach in the name of safety and security and protection. Example being the Patriot Act after 9/11. I think that is a complete government overreach that is completely unconstitutional. I think privacy and local government is the way to go. From a federal, national perspective, that level of government should not be involved in my life in the minute micro side of things. And that's where some of the libertarian influence comes into my beliefs. And that's why I say I'm a Libertarian Conservative, and that I am a conservative first with some libertarian flair. Now, as a conservative, I'm 36 years old. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I believe that the government should play a role in society that is minimal, and I believe in the Constitution of the United States. I truly do believe that document was divinely influenced at the time it was written. It is inherently essential to human rights. The first two amendments are paramount, and the right to free speech, the right to freely discuss things without fear of any negative recourse from the government, because that's a big caveat there. You can be free to speak with your mind, but the government shouldn't be able to interfere with you. But if you speak your mind and you sound like a crazy person, society might not want to interact with you, and that's okay. That's where people get confused sometimes. And the Second Amendment, the ability to protect yourself with any means necessary, which often comes into the form of firearms, I think is important, just as important, and goes hand in hand with the First Amendment. Without those two things, you are not a free man or woman. And those are the only two things that openly and directly contradict any sort of authoritative or authoritarian form of government. And those are the first two things that an authoritarian government attacks And that's where, over the last few years, especially since COVID, the liberals in the Democrat Party have went crazy in terms of free speech and attacking what you can and can't say or believe or discuss. And then they've always had a track record with, but especially recently, trying to minimize and or take away aspects of the Second Amendment in the name of public safety, when in reality, a fully armed population is going to be the most safe place you can be. I feel much more comfortable if I know there's a handful of other guys in a public place that are responsibly and safely carrying firearms, just like I am in pretty much almost all scenarios in public. I feel much safer in a scenario like that than a scenario where none of us are allowed to carry firearms and only the people who break the law are then carrying firearms. Just wanted to touch on, as a libertarian conservative husband and dad, those two things are paramount in my belief system of how I conduct my life. As I've become a husband and a father and have dealt with a lot of proverbial wolves in the world, realizing that I am more of a shepherd with my family. I am the protector and guider of my family spiritually and literally in terms of safety. And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing more and more, especially raising two little precious girls, that the wolves out there are plentiful and growing and becoming more conniving with time. And they seek to take you out, take your family out, take your girls out, your children. Your children are their number one target because they know, what was that famous quote, was, give me your youth and I'll have your future. And so those wolves out there are going after your kids. And as a husband and a father, you are the last line of defense. You are the first influence in those children's lives to protect them, but also to prepare them for those threats as they become adults. And you're also the last line of defense as they are growing to protect them. As a libertarian conservative, I believe that because that is the truth, that I am that for my family, I need the government to be as out of the way as possible in my life so that I can do that to the best of my ability. And a government that presents itself to restrict my ability to do that in any way needs to move on. And as an American, I feel like we inherently, from our foundation as a nation, have been given rights to enable me as a husband and a father to do those things for my family, to provide that safety and protection and guidance for my family. And that's where I have a problem with a lot of the left-wing side of the political spectrum, wanting to control your kids through public education, wanting to influence them without your permission or without your authority as their parent. That has been a big push since COVID. COVID was a big showing a face for the evil forces and the wolves that are out there. They presented themselves for who they really are. They came out of the shadows. And their intent is to go after our kids and to go after our wives, go after you as husbands and fathers, as men. They will do anything to convince you that you are not good enough or that you will never be able to amount to anything. And therefore, if those evil forces, if those wolves can take you down as a husband and a father, it'd be easier for them to get to your children and your wife. And that's where I believe, as a libertarian conservative, I want the government to be as small as possible. The government on a federal level should be there to protect us as a nation with the military that should be strong and to be able to serve as a higher up system judicially to keep the local governments in check when it comes to local governments trying to overstep their bounds with how they regulate people on a more micro level. I don't think the federal government should be instituting laws and policies that actually micromanage anybody. That's not the role of the federal government. The state government is pushing it as well. I think local governments, community to community, should be able to govern themselves based on the needs and desires of those people in that community. And I think government functions better when it's operating that way, more efficiently and more morally that way. The federal government should not be coming into our lives and micromanaging anything. And that's where, from a liberal perspective, them trying to come into our lives and regulate how I can protect my family. The fact that I can't openly carry a firearm in Florida drives me insane. I have to conceal carry it. Thankfully, they passed law a couple of years ago for the state policies that allow me to constitutional carry as long as it's concealed. But it's ridiculous that Florida is joining only New York, Illinois, and California as the only states in the union that don't allow open carry of firearms, because that's just absurd. I think that's inherently unconstitutional. If I want to openly carry the firearm of my choosing that fits my needs and desires the most, then why shouldn't I be able to do that? If I'm being given the right to carry a firearm in general, why can't I carry it out in public? So out in the open in public, I should say. Which forces me to have to carry a firearm that I believe is lesser in capability because in order to keep it concealed. Concealing a firearm means you need a smaller firearm that can fit more comfortably in a pocket or in your waistband, and that's just difficult. And it's not going to be as effective at doing the job it's intended to do, to protect my loved ones in a dire situation, as a full-size handgun would be on my hip. A big old 45 Colt revolver is what I would love to carry on my hip all the time, because I'm much better shot with one of those than I am with my tiny little Kimber Micro 9 that I carry in my pocket normally as my normal daily concealed carry. So that's a perfect example of the left-wing side of things reaching in and governing my life on a micro level that is not constitutional and is not acceptable to me. And I hope that the law will change eventually to reflect that. And from the right-wing side of things, back when the Patriot Act was passed, that government overreach of giving them more authority to be able to reach in and listen in and wiretap and in the name of public safety, not okay. My privacy is paramount. Not because I'm inherently doing anything wrong, but because my privacy is paramount. Enough said. And that's an example of right-wing government overreaching and becoming too big. And that's why I think, as a libertarian conservative, I'm conservative in my principles morally and spiritually and economically, which is why I typically vote Republican. But those libertarian flares are important, because that's where I often tell people jokingly that politically I identify as Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, if you ever watch that show. But in the end, the general gist for me is I'll vote for someone who I think aligns more so with my libertarian conservative principles, but in no way do I view anyone in government or any government agency as being essential to my life. No politician, no branch of government, no agency within the government, no federal bureaucrat or state bureaucrat, in my mind, is infallible. They are all flawed. They all have ulterior motives. And at the end of the day, I'll leave it up to God to influence people to do the big change. And I'll trust God is going to allow happen what he wants to allow to happen. And I will vote because I have the right to have a say in the direction my government goes. I will still exercise that right to the best of my ability, but in no way do I put my utmost trust and self-worth or being in the government at all. That's what I mean by being a libertarian conservative. I vote Republican, and I believe in small government, and in no way am I putting any sort of actual stock in any of the process. I think it could all collapse and fall at any moment. If 2020 didn't teach you anything, then I don't know what will. Remember how people were going crazy over stupid things, toilet paper, and it was just an insane time. How quickly people just devolve into barbarians, essentially. That's part of this whole effort with this homestead my wife and I are pursuing here, is to be self-sufficient and be able to provide a life for our girls that doesn't rely on any part of the system if it doesn't have to, That's the goal. We will participate in society. We will try to influence society. We will enjoy some of the benefits of a modern society while never putting ourselves in a position that relies on them entirely. That's my goal. with this hopeful homestead property that we're starting here. And if you're new around here, I'm filming from my custom campsite I built next to my little DIY travel cabin out here on my 21-acre property here in South Florida that my wife and I are going to be building a homestead on, building a farmhouse, barn, the whole bit. And if you found this interesting and want to stick around for more, please do subscribe. I would love to have you here. Just wanted to clear the air to make sure everybody knows where I'm coming from when I'm talking about political issues and philosophical issues, moral issues. Again, my name is Chad Ainsworth, and this channel is all about homesteading, adventure, and beach life. I'm just a husband and a father looking to hold on to that sense of adventure in life as I enter my middle age. Thanks for being here, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Later.